Hi guys, and welcome back to the No Gluten Zone. Today I wanted to do a little video on favorite cookbooks and kind of cooking and baking in general, maybe a little bit. I do want to do maybe once a month, I'm thinking a video on a favorite product or item or a favorite of some sense. And most of the time it will revolve around gluten. There might be times where it really has nothing to do with gluten and it's a favorite thing that I really want to share. That might happen sometimes. And I do have some other health issues that I might get into if there's interest on that, and then there might be items that revolve around those issues. But most of the time, like 90% of this channel will revolve around gluten and being gluten-free. So if you're new here, welcome to my channel. Please, I would appreciate if you would subscribe. If you want to be notified when new videos are posted, hit the bell. I try to do a new video every week, but it's a new channel and I'm getting going, and thank you for joining me. So let me get into my background on cooking and baking. So from a very young age, I was really interested in cooking and baking, but I didn't have anyone to teach me. And then when I was a teenager, I was on my own a lot, and I just kind of started doing it on my own without needing anyone's permission or approval. I was old enough, and so I made a lot of mistakes, which I think that's normal if you don't have anyone there to help you. But I've always enjoyed having cookbooks. I like to find, I found that certain cookbook authors kind of jive with me and some don't. Some, like, I try their recipes and they don't work for me. I'm sure they work for that person. Somehow they're doing something different. So when I find someone that works for me, I stick to that person. I'm very loyal, and I get all their books. There's a few people out there that I really, really like their stuff, and I've done that with over the years. So when I was a teenager and I was cooking, I was a vegetarian. I became a vegetarian at the age of around 15 for health reasons. I've always struggled with my health, and I have in the last few years learned kind of why that is, and I will probably get into that in a future video. But so I was trying to take care of myself and just be healthy, and I was living on fast food from about age 12 to age 15. My parents had split up when I was 12, and I was eating a lot of fast food. There was no like family meals and cooking going on for a while there. And then when I was 15, I was so unhealthy. I just did not feel well, and I had a lot of things going on. And so I said, I need to get healthy. And to me, in my mind, I equated that with, vegetarians are always healthy. So I'm going to be a vegetarian. And so I did that for about 10 years. I was a vegetarian. And since then, I haven't been. I honestly think I am healthier not being a vegetarian. Having said that, everyone is different, and you need to listen to your body. So I'm not telling you don't be a vegetarian or a vegan, but listen to your body and do what your body needs. And so my body does need some animal protein in that, but I don't eat a lot of it. Having said that, I'm still kind of a picky eater. I always have been, and so I just don't like being so legalistic. I don't say like, I can't eat that or I never eat that except for gluten. But other things are in moderation or whatever. If I want it, I eat it. If I don't, I don't. And there's no legalism in it, and I like that. So that's the way it's been. I did make an attempt several years ago where I tried to go back. I was really struggling with my health, and I thought it was kind of right before I got diagnosed with celiac, and I was really doing poorly, and I thought maybe I need to be vegetarian again. Maybe I was wrong, and I gave it another shot, and then I even went into veganism, and that was just clearly not what my body needed, and I went back to my old ways, and I've done much better, especially after finding the celiac diagnosis. So I have always enjoyed baking, and I do like cooking, and so that was one of my biggest concerns when I found out it had to be gluten-free was, am I ever going to be able to bake again? Because it's really such a passion and such a joy in my life, and especially just to bake for others, or just to bake. I would bake just for the fun of it and give it away. And I was really worried about that, and I did some homework and I got a couple books off of Amazon, and some of them I loved, some of them I hated, and I don't know what, I gave them away or sold them or something over the years. But I have been, I was diagnosed in December of 2012. So I have been gluten-free for a little over 6 years now. And then my son was diagnosed January or February of 2013. Right after me. We put 2 and 2 together and realized that's what's going on with him too. And he's been gluten-free ever since then. So it has been quite a few years. You know, I would say the first couple of years you're just figuring it out and learning and making, most people make a lot of mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes. I didn't know that cross-contamination was a thing, and I'll get into that in other videos. But yeah, so those first 2 years, give yourself a lot of grace, okay? And do the best you can. And then just move forward, you know, knowing what I looked at. What am I missing? What am I craving? And what can I put in its place to satisfy that need? So I didn't feel so deprived. And so baking was a big part of it. Let me just share some of my favorite books. I love Annalise G. Roberts. I am telling you, everything of hers that I have made is just amazing. This is, I believe this is her first book, I think. I might be wrong. Gluten-Free Baking Classics. I use this one like all the time. It's amazing. I can go through it. I'm hoping to do some videos where I kind of show you, you know, the different basic, you know, a cookie one and maybe a cupcake muffin one or a cake one or something along those lines. I might do that at some point in the future, and it will most likely come from this book. So this one, I got it on Amazon. I'm sure it's still there, and I highly, highly recommend it. She has another book that came out. This was later than that one for sure. Gluten-Free Baking Classics, the Heirloom collection. This one also has some really great stuff, and it had, I think this is the one that has the snickerdoodles. I was really missing snickerdoodles, and I was like, oh, thank you. When it came out, I was so excited. So this one has some really great stuff too. And then I also found this one. I went back, just ran her name through at Amazon, Annalise G. Roberts, and this one came out. There's one other one. It's for making breads in a bread machine, and it is, I believe it's her bread recipes from her first book, from this one, but they're formulated for a bread machine. I don't have a bread machine, and I'm not really interested. I have a small kitchen. I'm sure at some point I'll be videoing in my kitchen showing how to do things, and you'll see. I have a very small kitchen. I don't need another big appliance cluttering. I did use a bread machine a lot before I went gluten-free. I liked it just to mix the doughs, and I'm not really a big fan of just a loaf of bread sliced. I like to do, like, you know, flatbreads and focaccias and different shaped loaves and different things. There's something like really unappealing about the shape of a loaf of bread that comes out of a bread machine for me. I'm sure that's just me. So I used it mostly just to mix the dough, because with wheat dough you have to do all the kneading and stuff, and I was like, oh no. So I liked for the machine to do that for me. But gluten-free bread doughs really are different. And I do them in my stand mixer. I have a KitchenAid stand mixer, and you mix them in there on high for 3 minutes, and then you let it rise, and, you know, whatever, depending on the recipe. They're all a little bit different, but I like it that way so much better, and doing it in the oven. So I did not buy, you know, obviously my old bread machine was contaminated with gluten and needed to go, and I never bought another one, and I'm just not interested in it. But she does have a book for that, if that's something you're interested in. There are definitely pros to having a bread machine, so it just depends on you. If you have the space and it's something you think would work well in your life, then go for it. And I would highly recommend her book for it if you do. Then she has this one also. It's the Gluten-Free Good Health Cookbook, the delicious way to strengthen your immune system and neutralize inflammation. So this has some really good information just on your overall diet, and it has some like really basic things, like, I don't know, how to cook a steak, how to make fajitas, how to make mac and cheese from scratch, like making that cheesy sauce, and it has a lot of stuff like that, which I really like. And then it does have like some actual recipes, like creamy corn pudding, green bean casserole. It's not just baking. I think it might have some baking stuff in there, but it's not much. But it's a lot of just general stuff that I really found valuable and I really like. But I like to cook. So if you're really just into baking, maybe you might not benefit from this one. But if you're looking to cook and bake, then all three of them, and maybe the bread machine one too, I highly recommend. Outside of her books, like 90% of the time, I'm reaching for her books. Outside of her books, I do like this one, Sweet Cravings. This lady, I don't know if I can say her name properly. I think it's Kyra Bussanich. She was on the Cupcake Wars, and she won. I think she was the first gluten-free baker to win on the show, and it has some really good stuff in here. There are a few things in here that I make again and again and again that I reach for. I will say one big difference is with Annalise G. Roberts, you make a flour mix and then you bake from it. There's actually a couple. There's like what I call like the pastry one for the cakes and cookies. Then there's like the bread one and that. And so that's kind of what I got used to initially, and that's kind of what I stick to. But her recipes in here, there's no mixes. So if you don't like making a mix, then you might want to go for this book. It's just each recipe tells you exactly this much flour, this much starch, this much whatever, and it's just, there's no mixing anything ahead of time for this. And then outside of those, the one I reach for the most is Lexi's Clean Kitchen by Alexis Kornblum Davidson. Someone I follow, I don't remember who it is right now, someone I follow on Instagram kept recommending her recipes and her book, and I finally took the time to look her up, and then I got her book. And it is kind of a modified paleo. They're paleo friendly, she calls it. And she usually tells you, like, you do this to make it paleo, but you can also do this. And I kind of like that. I'm not a strict paleo at all, but sometimes I do want to lean in that direction. I think it's kind of healthier in that. So this is a really good book too. I do really recommend this if you have any interest in that. And it's more than baking. There is baking stuff, but then there's a lot of other stuff too that I think is really great. So having said that, I will hopefully do a future video on how I make the flour mixes and how I store them and that kind of thing, because I think that's important to know if you're going that route. A lot of people like to just get recipes on the internet, and I'm older. I am 46. I'm going to be 47 this year. So I grew up with no internet, and it's still, I love it. I have a love-hate relationship with it. But it's not, I don't just go to it like first thing. I'm still like, go to a cookbook, go to a reference book, that kind of thing. And so, yes, getting recipes on the internet are great, but especially when it comes to baking, if some recipes are great and some are just horrible, and you don't always know who wrote that recipe. So for me, that's hard. Like I said, I tend to be very loyal to a person who I like their recipes. So yes, I get every book by this lady and other people that I find that their recipes work for me, and I stick to that. And I think I see a lot of people who say, you know, they have a lot of failures and things that don't work out. And I think maybe it's because they're just following stuff, they're looking for stuff on the internet. So when you're first starting out, I would really recommend getting a good book, at least just one good book, and following through it and really narrowing it down. Because there is a learning curve to gluten-free baking. It doesn't just come as easy as baking with wheat. So kind of give yourself some time and some grace. You're going to make mistakes. It took me forever to be able to do a loaf of gluten-free bread, okay? They kept sinking in the middle. After I would take them out of the oven, they looked great, and then they would just collapse. So it takes a while to really get the hang of things, and I think bread is probably the hardest one. But yeah, so look into that. I highly recommend these. I will put links for these books in the description box below in case you're interested in them. And I hope this helps. So have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.